about to get crazy.
Hello, everyone. Happy Friday, day after Thanksgiving Day, the day I like to call Happy Gratefulness Week. I'm joined by Katie Eades of Owl Professional Development. No, just kidding.
Coaching.
Owl Coaching. I know.
I like the development, though, because that's really what we do.
Yeah, we're going to have a little fun today. So I got my Instagram people here who are joining me.
What's up, Instagram people?
Yeah, it's good to see you all. I hope you had a nice Thanksgiving. So today is Friday. We talk performance. Let's talk performance on Friday. Normally I talk about 4 topics. It's going to be gratitude, family, performance, and history. And, we just kind of like to have fun. That's a big part of who Katie and I are as coaches.
That's right. We give a hoot about you and humor too.
Yes. So, let's start with gratitude. I'd love for my Instagram people to add in what they're grateful for, and and let's ask you, Katie, like, what are you grateful for?
I am grateful to celebrate 2 months of Tennessee living. Woo, go Vols!
Tennessee living. Now, I just because of the football reference, she did say go Vols. Now, Tennessee had a really nice performance, and then they had a not so nice performance. We won't talk about the not so nice performance, but because their quarterback actually went down and got hurt, and that was definitely sad to see. Senior year, it's always tough to see a fellow athlete go down, especially all these young athletes, whether they're playing football, volleyball, whatever sport they're playing. Basketball season is upon us, and we love seeing our young student athletes perform. The NFL athletes, forget about them. Just kidding.
Now, Ziz, you know a little bit about a senior year injury. You're not a stranger to that.
Yeah. So Katie just brought up an injury. So I had 2 major injuries. One happened in college. My Achilles popped second quarter, about 3-minute mark of the second quarter, right before halftime. I hop off the field. I'm thinking it's a severe sprain. First person that sees me is the head coach, Bobby Ross. And he's like, what are you doing? Like, why are you over here? I'm like, hey, coach, it felt like I fell in a hole. And when I said that, he just walked away. And trainer comes up. And he's like, yeah, I'm thinking, Ziz, this might be an Achilles. I'm like, an Achilles? What's an Achilles? I'm like, I'd never had any issues with an Achilles. Lo and behold, definitely the Achilles. It went pop. It was, mixed emotions, to be honest with you. Definitely sad initially. I gathered my thoughts, understood why I was in college and the bigger picture of why I was there. Obviously, football was just a part of me and part of my identity, but the other part was to graduate. I was going to become the first graduate within my immediate family to graduate college. So that was super exciting. I wore the number 87, and it was going to be, I graduated in spring of 87. So that's why that number is so important to me, because that was a stepping stone for my family. And of course, I have 3 children who are college graduates. So injuries are tough, tough thing to overcome. I'm not sure if any of you have ever had an injury. In the NFL, when you really think about it, when you really think about the NFL, it's inevitable that someone is going to have an injury. It's just going to happen at some point.
Unless you're Tom Brady, and then somehow you are untouchable.
Yeah, but Tom Brady...
I'm just kidding. But what I'd love to talk about that you just shared a little bit there is the gratitude that you find even in difficult performances. And so whether you've had a physical injury and you've been an athlete, or you had a corporate injury, a work injury, something that set you back or felt like your performance had to take a rest, or maybe you got fired during COVID. All kinds of things happen that affect our performance. And what I hear for you is not only just big picture, but also some gratitude for getting to have college. I make assumptions you had it for free. I know that I had a partial scholarship, but you kind of see the gratitude even in those tough moments. And I think that really defines leaders and allows people to keep going forward.
Yeah, Katie just mentioned something that was really interesting. So my injury, what it did help me do was, being an athlete, you're at a point in your life where you're young, you're physically strong and all of those type things. And you tend to be headstrong. So one of the things I learned is when you're on crutches and you're in the dining hall, how do you get your food? How do you do the simple things? And it was very difficult without needing help and asking for help. So that was the big lesson I learned, was asking for help. And I think that's something that more of us should do, especially men who look like me. And what I mean by that, like I call myself the permanent tan man. I try to stay away from certain labels, but just to be really specific, African-American males, Black males, whatever you call yourself, ask for help at times. And it's really important, because I think the one thing that I learned from playing a team sport is that when you involve others, they understand what you're going through. When they can help, they will, and especially in sports, but then in life, with your partner, your business partner, with your life partner, whatever it might be. So that's why I'm grateful for my family, is to be able to rely on them. And then, of course, yesterday being able to, I'm not a big sit down and eat a whole lot of food type person, but just to be able to enjoy the conversations and be with family.
Yeah, asking for help was the greatest lesson that I would say, most recent performance setback really taught me. Only child who, was there to serve and help others, not necessarily ask for help. And I played that individual sport. And this is why when it comes to performance, I am such a proponent of coaching and having people there to support you and get help in that way. Oh, hey, Instagram.
Yeah. So after, how did it make your soul feel in asking for help?
Like it was burning in 1,000 fiery suns. It was so hard for me. It was such a outside the comfort zone place for me. We talk human design all the time here. From a human design place, I am the calm in the storm. I do not have the emotional stuff in the background, and I'm designed to be that. And so it really felt like my not self. And I call that the ego. And when we got that part out of the way, I found a place where I can be the calm storm, but also the calm in the storm, but also ask for help. And, you ask about gratitude. I'm so grateful that my dad and I actually spent our first Thanksgiving cooking dinner, probably the first Thanksgiving together cooking dinner since my mom passed away. And prior to that, with my ex-husband, I had spent 12 years doing Thanksgiving with his family. And then living in New York, that's a great place to be for Thanksgiving. So I'm really grateful for family that have been so supportive and amazing, and that are still here being able to celebrate that with us in Tennessee.
Yeah. Katie just recently relocated to Tennessee from the New Jersey area. So what a difference, huh? So think about it. So we've just covered, we haven't delved totally into performance, but we talked about performance, talked about gratitude. Let's talk a little bit about family. So we hit the piece about family. I've referenced the fact that I was the first to have graduated college within my immediate family. There's some people on Instagram who also shared that as well. And it's an awesome opportunity. And Katie, in your case, what was yesterday like for you from a family aspect?
So yesterday was just me being grateful from a family aspect for Dan, my partner, who cooked most of our food. So grateful for him. He's a great cook. You talk about college. So I'm kind of grateful that I have a supportive family where I have decided I'm not going to be that first one to get my master's necessarily. We'll see. I've decided if I can't write a book on my own, then I'll pay for the master's to teach me how to write a book, because that's what everyone keeps telling me the master's will give me. But I'm grateful. My mom on her side of the family, I would be the first one to have a 4-year degree. On my dad's side of the family, not so much, but I'm grateful that I used my degree for the 7 years that I was a teacher. And I'm grateful that I'm really owning that, because women, we have more master's degrees than men. Women are getting more educated because we're trying to open doors with these pieces of paper that have been just naturally opened for men over the years. And so I'm grateful that I'm able to I like to use the Kenny Powers. Like, I'm not trying to be the best at exercise, and I play real sports. I'm not trying to be, the school principal or the CEO anymore. I'm trying to coach them, and that is a different set of skills. And I'm grateful that I don't have to chase that piece of paper that so many women feel like we have to.
Interesting point. So Katie, referencing the fact that, getting her master's is no longer a top goal. It might be in there somewhere, but more
It's not
importantly,
one of those family pride goals
yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
Yeah.
Julia Breck from Tennessee says, hi, Katie. She's like, from Tennessee. It's interesting, I think, to bring in the history aspect of the fourth thing that we'll talk about when you think about family, and how when Katie and I were talking a little earlier about like, what are we actually going to talk about? When I think of history, I think about patterns.
And I immediately was like, yes, that's what I was thinking of, because I have a degree in history. And so this is what I'm so passionate about.
Yeah, and it's interesting, the patterns, what patterns are we creating within our own family? What patterns are we grateful for? What patterns have we used in our past that got us our best performance? And then maybe think about, reflect on the fact what patterns maybe have given us our biggest learning opportunities. Notice I didn't say failures, because to me, failures are opportunities to learn.
Yeah. And what I like about coaching and the patterns that we look for is when you come in and you say, I'm struggling with, this is what's coming up for a lot of my clients. I'm struggling with executive presence and communication. How can I be better at communication? Instead of looking at, well, let's look at the patterns of how you're not good. Tell me about the times you struggle. I'm looking for, tell me that one time in your life where you showed up and rocked it. And to this day, I have yet to have someone say never. If they say never, they may laugh and then they find this story to share. And that's where we're looking for patterns, because where we focus is what we do. And so if we're focusing on looking for the patterns, let's disrupt these, let's stop these. I just want to know, what are we great at? Because those other patterns will go away as you continue to build the patterns that will make you successful.
All right, Katie, go back. You said where we focus is what we do.
Yeah.
I wanted to highlight that part because I think that's so true. I'll use the football example. I won't say, well, actually, you know what? I'll use a real example. Playing against Clemson, we're down, need a touchdown to score, fourth quarter, 1:20 left on the clock. The play comes in, and the play is run 9. A 9 is you just run as fast as you can down the field, and the idea is you're supposed to catch the ball. And as I was running out to my position, playing wide receiver, I'm thinking, don't drop the ball, don't drop the ball, don't drop the ball. So here's that focus piece. That's what I was telling myself. Don't drop the ball, don't drop the ball. Obviously, the rest of the answer is I dropped the ball, because that's where my focus was. So the idea is you focus on what it is that you want to achieve, focus on the desired outcome. So my focus should have been catch the ball, score a touchdown. So when we think about life and in general, if you have a problem at home with your family or in your corporate job or your regular job, don't focus on the hurdles or the challenges, focus on the desired outcome, and then figure out how to reach that desired outcome.
And I'm going to throw in here, because we talk about yes and, I'm going to throw in a both and. But what I look for, right? So people are like, well, what am I supposed to do with these patterns? I know I have this behavior pattern. Well, we want to disrupt it. So we want to look for the one time, right? And how do we create the patterns so that that could exist from there? But I also think that if we really zoom out, we become a little bit more conscious to the positive patterns. Our brains are designed to look for the negative so that we don't die. So if we allow ourselves to zoom out a little bit, and example, actually, I don't know if that example really fits there that I was going to share, but what I think about with expanding this consciousness is I taught history. So I saw this meme that said, if history doesn't make you angry and sad and all of this, then you aren't understanding history. And I want to zoom out a little bit more. If history doesn't show you that life is we're such a blip on our radar, it's such a tiny little piece of what we get to experience. History shows us that people are creative, resourceful, and whole, and also they're inherently flawed. History shows us the both and of those sides. But most importantly, I think for me, history shows me that being alive means we make mistakes, and that and wanting to lean into that. And as we look at performance and think about history, oftentimes we look at all the crap we messed up on, and that's not really where we want to go.
It's interesting you say that, because when you think about sports, coming back to the whole performance piece, you think about sports, you think about family, you think about history and or patterns, and think about gratitude. You know, when you put all of those things together, you tend to go, And like you said, we tend to focus on the negative. We always go, oh, that wasn't good, or I dropped this pass, or I could have done better in that speaking performance, instead of like, what did you do well? How well did you prepare for it? How did your team perform in completing that corporate project? So in the mode of our mind, sometimes we hover around that space of like, it's not good enough, like that, I don't know, for lack of a better word, that saboteur type mode.
Yeah. And then like even that, like the history thing, I think about the longest time I would talk about my saboteur, my avoider, which is like little Katie. Yeah. And that was the history and the patterns I had developed for myself. And as I was telling a story about little Katie in 5th grade. She got her period in front of the whole class. Little Katie did. And grandma had to come get her because parents were working, and grandma took her home, and she got new clothes, and she was like, well, let's go back to school. And grandma's like, you don't have to go back to school. You can, take a day off. I'm like, I'm not going to miss out on whatever academics you're learning. Like, I wanted to go back to school. And as I was telling the story, I was like, I had to stop. And I said, you know what? That saboteur voice is not little Katie. Little Katie was a badass. Little Katie was not afraid of, and I got called Bloody Mary for like an entire year after that. But little Katie was willing to go into the fire. And becoming conscious of that was like, wow, I really just rewrote my history there, but from a place that was real, not from these patterns that, my therapist had helped me uncover as behavior, but from this place of, wow, look, tell me about a time where you overcame something. It didn't really feel like a big thing I overcame because that was just who I was.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, just allowing yourself to be conscious to the positive pattern that was there versus that negative.
And that's the mode. If we operate from that place, that space, and we help each other from that space and that place, you can do so much more.
Yes. And that's the both and, where we can look at history and we can say, yes, you can cry and you can be ashamed and you can be sad. And it can be both. Because if you get deeper into history, wow, we built some pyramids.
Yeah.
Slave labor. So, we repeated that mistake, but wow, look what humans are able to create. And it's a both and. It's not negating one or the other. It's not affirming that something isn't true. But why do I want to affirm all the negative things when I'm trying to create positive things?
Right. Well, Katie, I think this has been a really cool topic to cover. We talked about performance, we talked about family, we talked about gratitude. And of course, we talked about history. And the word that popped up for both Katie and I when we said history was patterns. So think about your patterns. Think about what's possible to create. Think about what patterns you may need to stop, or some new patterns you may need to create. So as I think about November ending, and I'm always into doing push-ups. You may have seen me do push-ups here and there. As I think about the goal that I set for myself, I actually started at 3,750 was my original goal. And then I upped to 250 to 4,000. I thought about how inconsistent I was, which was not necessarily negative or positive. It just was what it was. However, so I said, you know what? I want to be more consistent in December in what it is that I do. So I upped my number to 4,250. Anyone interested in joining me in doing any type of push-up, DM me, reach out.
What I think is really important, you said there's this as well to point out, is history is about not having emotions around it, right? History, we don't have emotions about the pyramids being built with slave labor because it's thousands of years ago. There's no emotions around that. So when we think about patterns, you're like, it was what it was. It wasn't bad. It wasn't good. It was inconsistent. And then you focused on the pattern that you wanted to create.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of it. And I think sports help teach me that. And whether you know this or not, like when you play football at the college level and at the professional level, the eye in the sky, that's what we like to refer to it as, the eye in the sky doesn't lie because it records everything. Mm-hmm. And in the world in which we live today with high def television and cameras and videos, you see every single thing.
And for someone that sat in the sixth to last row in the Tennessee Stadium, you are the eye in the sky. And what I got to see was us kick Missouri's butt. As someone that grew up in Illinois, that just felt nice.
Yeah.
We have a quote today, Ziz, before we go. I think this is super fun about Ziz and I. Universe brought us together in a Zoom room, and we both happen to own this really cool little quote thing. Mine was a gift. Ziz bought his. And the quote we have for today: nobody can experience our lives for us.
Nobody can experience our lives for us. And who said that?
Charlotte Joko Beek.
Ooh, Charlotte Beek. That's pretty powerful. No one can experience
our lives for us.
Our lives for us.
Which is why I love coaching, because you're the expert. You get to experience your own life. You know everything about yourself. So when you work with us, it's just an opportunity for us to see what you've experienced and how to make more of what it is that you want in that experience.
Great way to end. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Happy Friday, and go out and have fun. Bye-bye. Brother G, I see your comment about push-ups. I know you're on